There are lots of great programming environments out there. Eclipse, IntelliJ, these are some of the most favorites. But if you are learning a language for the first time, it's actually best to take some of those guide wheels off and take matters onto your own hands. So, what I'm showing you here is how you can set up your Windows computer to compile and run Java programs in the most manual way possible. The idea is when you do these things on your own, you remember things a lot better, and you get a better understanding of how the computer works also. So here I have a folder just created for me to save my Java programs. So what I want to do first is I want to check if the Java installation is there, the Java JDK. So what I would do is you can see the address bar. I would select that, which then highlights that path, that address, and I would erase it and type CMD instead. Now this works on most computers, most Windows machines. It's a very convenient feature. So you should be presented with what's called the command prompt, which is the name for the terminal or the shell under Windows. And you should be able to see the same path or the location over here. So that's a little thing that's going to matter later on. But right now, just type Java C. So JAVAC and hit enter. Not just Java, you have to put the C as well. Okay, so the way you type things should be exactly the way I show them. Right, type Java C, and you can see it says Java C is not recognized as an internal or an external. It's just saying I don't know what you're talking about. All right, so the next thing that you should do is install the Java JDK, which would give us the Java C application. So if you haven't done this already, head over to your favorite web browser and your favorite search engine and then type Java JDK. Search, and then you should get the first result going to the right place. So the Java JDK is for people who write or develop Java programs. It's called the Java Developers Kit. Just be careful not to download Java JRE, because JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment, and that's only for people who just run existing Java applications. You need to have the JDK. So make sure that you are looking at the page and the link says JDK or Java Developers Kit or something like that. Another thing is the version number here is 11. Now your version will most likely be different because Oracle updates Java very frequently. And it's really not going to make a difference if you are a student in Introduction to Programming or maybe even Programming 1, Programming Techniques. It won't make a big difference. So head over to that, and then you should be presented with the files that you can download. You most likely will have to accept the license agreement if you agree with their license agreement. And then since this demonstration is for Windows machines, I advise you to download this .exe option, which will take care of things for you. So that's probably the easiest way to do things. Then so once you download the executable file, you open it and then you run that installer to install Java, the JDK that is. So if that installation goes through fine, you won't notice it's even installed. But to find out if it's installed properly, what you do is again bring up one of these Explorer windows, Windows Explorer windows, the file manager. Then head over to this PC, and then you need to look inside the program files folder, which is generally under the C drive on most machines. Then you should see one called program files and another one called program files x86. And if you're on a older, very old 32-bit machine, running a 32-bit version of Windows at least, you probably have only this one. But start by looking inside program files, and that should work for most modern computers. So here I have a folder called Java, and that was created when I installed Java last. You can also see once I went inside the Java folder, you can see the JDK and JRE, right? So these are separate folders. We are interested in the JDK. Now, if you haven't installed the JRE, that's okay. You just go to the JDK folder. The version of the JDK that I have is 1.8. Yours will, as I said, be very likely different. It's not an issue. So head over to that. Now, if you're in the right place at this stage, you should be able to see a folder called bin. All right, bin stands for binary files. Those are the applications that we want. So remember we typed Java C earlier and we got this message saying, I don't know what it is. Well, that's because, that's not because we don't have the application. It's just that the command window or the command prompt doesn't know where to look for when you say Java C. So we need to tell Windows where to look for when we type this Java C command. So we have the path over here for this folder, and we want to add that to what's called the system environment variables. Okay, so start off by going to the Windows menu or the Start button or whatever it's called these days, and search for advanced system settings. So you can type it up and then it'll show up. Alternatively, now, so this would take you to this, right? Alternatively, you can again type env or environment variables and you would get the same thing. So it's good to have different ways to get to the same spot, right? So if you're looking at the system properties, make sure that you're looking at the advanced tab, and under the advanced tab you should be able to see a thing called environment variables. So go to that, and then there is a section up here called user variables, and then there's a section down here called system variables. I advise people to use the system to change this in the system variables because then it'll be available for all usernames on the system. So we are looking for the path, PATH. So that is the system path. In other words, that's the place where that's a list of locations where Windows will look for various commands that we type. So we want to add our bin directory or bin folder to that one. Okay, so select that and then say edit. Make sure you're selecting path and not any of the other ones. There's a big difference between path and path.ext and so on. Okay, so make sure it's PATH. If it's all capitals, that's okay. If it's all symbols, that's okay, as long as it's PATH in this situation, okay, in this window. So edit, and then we have a list of the existing paths. You might have some other Java things in there, then don't worry about it. We need to add this one. So how do we do that? Again, I want to click in this empty area. See that? So it highlighted. No, that's not the one we want. So yep, actually that's the one we want. So I highlighted and it gave me the path as we would write it, not in this fancy way with the arrows, but we want it in this style that's in the environment variable list. So I can copy it from here and put it in here. Now, if that doesn't work, if you can't copy it like that, what you do is you right click on, say, the Java C exe or this Java C application, and then you right click and then you say properties, and then you should be able to see the location, which is the same thing, right? So that's the exact same thing. So all files in this folder, in this directory, will have the same location, the bin directory of Java. Okay, so once that's copied from here, we want to go here and add a new entry. So I press the new button, and you can see there's already an option for me to type in things. So instead of typing it in and getting things wrong in the process, I'm going to just paste And with these things, it's probably a good idea to not trust your memory. Just copy it and paste it. That's the safest thing. Okay, so that's there. Now, it doesn't really matter whether it's up here or down here or in the middle, really, for what we are going to do. So say OK, and again say OK, and keep saying OK to get rid of those settings windows. So once we head back over here, you might think, okay, we'll type Java C and then we should see something, not an error message. But we will see the same error message. That's because we haven't refreshed, or the command shell hasn't refreshed it hasn't taken into account the new path. Okay, so let's close this and head over to the place where I actually had my files saved earlier, or place where I wanted to save my Java files. So if I just created a folder called my programs, my new programs. Okay, so you can have any other name, it doesn't matter. All right, so at this point, we have completed the setting up process. You won't need to modify any settings or anything when you are writing programs at this stage. Okay, so everything's taken care of. So what I'm about to show you now is the normal workflow for creating, modifying, and running Java programs. Okay, so head over to the folder where you want to write your Java program. Select it by clicking on the empty area. If you just click on one of these names, it's not going to do anything. You need to select that white or that blank area, not the search. Okay, so this is the address bar. And type CMD. So when you type CMD, type CMD and hit enter, of course, and then it'll take you to a command shell which has navigated to that folder. Now these can be done through DOS commands or command prompt commands, but there are lots of commands like that, and we can't go through all of them. So, but in a situation where you might not know where this is, what you can do is, as long as you can find the path to this, you can. So I'm going to copy this, all right? And in fact, I'm going to close this. I'm going to show a different way of opening the command prompt. So we go through the start button, and then we say command prompt. You don't need to run it as an administrator or anything. Just make sure that the folder is in on your desktop or in your documents directory folder. Yeah, and you'll be fine. Okay, so here I'm in users G, but I need to get to this location. So what I say is CD. CD stands for change directory, and then I paste what I copied from here. See that? So I copy that, and then to paste, I just right click. There is no right click and paste. It's just right click. Alternatively, you can press. Now I'm erasing it. You can press Control V, and then that'll do the same thing. So Control V is pretty universal, and hit Enter, of course. And you can see now this cursor is blinking, or yeah, it's blinking next to this one, which is where we want to be. All right. So what we typed earlier, that's gone. It's kind of like a typewriter. What you have typed earlier is gone. We don't go back up. We can't go back up. That's old news. So what matters is what's near the blinking cursor. All right, here what I can say is I can type Java C now. This is one of the first things that we did earlier. And now you get a lot more than what we saw earlier. Right? Earlier we got a message saying, I don't know what you're talking about, but now it's saying, here's the usage, Java C, and a whole lot of other things. All right, so that's saying that we have Java compiler installed, and that's one of the first things you should do when you're writing a Java program. That is, you need to compile the program. Then you run it. So we need a program to compile, and that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to create a little program, a Hello World program. And so to do that, again, there are so many ways to do this, but you're not taking this approach for convenience. You are trying to use the command prompt and everything to get your hands dirty to know things better. So I prefer using the Windows Notepad editor, which is the same Notepad that you get with this icon. Everyone knows this icon. So this plain text editor is what we need. If you use WordPad, it's going to introduce issues. So now I closed the Notepad because I want to create a file here using Notepad. I want to create my Java file like this. So I'm going to type Notepad, right? And then I want to give the name of the file. So I'm going to call this helloworld.java, right? So you can see Notepad space hello world. I capitalize the H and the W because that's the style thing that we follow with Java. And then I said .java and I want to hit enter, right? So now it's saying, yep, could not find such a file. Do you want to create a new file? Yep, that's a good thing. So normally when you get that sound, it's bad news. But this time it's just telling you, okay, we can create a new file. Okay, so now it's saying hello world, then Java file. But I can't see hello world.java as I typed over here. The reason for that is when you install Windows, it tries to hide a lot of details from you just so that you don't break things. But you are now trying to learn things, so you need to unhide some of those details. So in your Explorer window, you can see you get the file, you get home, share. You might not have share, I don't know, but you should have this view tab, right? So head over to the view tab, and then you should be able to see options. So folder options is what we want to change, right? Change folder and search options. Now this folder options, I think it has been there since Windows XP. It looks very similar. It hasn't changed much. Again, it's just the way you get to it that's a little bit different depending on the version of Windows that you have. Okay, so head over to the View tab under folder options. Okay, so there's 3 here as well. So View, and scroll down to the point where it says hide extensions for known file types and uncheck it. So I just selected it, which unchecked it. Originally, when you install Windows, it comes with that checked. So I want to uncheck it. I don't want things hidden, right? So say OK, and then you should be able to see the .java. Maybe you were able to see the .java to begin with, but doesn't matter. It's a good thing to make that setting, put that setting, well, to enable that setting that I just did. Okay, so now we can see the file the way it really is, because I mean, if you get the properties of this file, the file has a name, right? So hello world.java, that's what it is. Okay, so don't worry about my icon here that says N++ or Notepad++. That doesn't matter. Okay, we're not going to do anything there. Right, so my editor right now is Notepad, and I'm going to write a little Java program. So public class hello world, public static void main string args. So if you use Eclipse or any other fancy editor, it would have written quite a lot of these things for you. And that's the whole reason why we are doing this thing. We are using this approach, so you know how to write these things on your own. Helps a lot in written exams. Okay, so I wrote the program, but I haven't saved it. That's why it's showing the size as 0. Even if you can't see the size, it's not an issue. Just use common sense. Just save the file. And once the file is saved, I can then compile the program into a form that is runnable by Java. Now, even though the code is Java to begin with, it doesn't mean that the computer understands it, right? So what we have written here is basically what the human understands it. We need to turn it into a format that the computer understands, basically the ones and zeros that we don't really talk about. So that's done using our Java C command, the Java compiler. That's called compilation. All right, so I'm trying to make this a bit small so you can see what goes on. Now I will type Java C hello world.java. All right, so I need to type the full name. That's another reason why it's nice to see the full name. Java C space hello world.java. Make sure that capitalizations are consistent, because yeah, well, that's the thing that you have to get used to in programming. Okay, and hit enter. All right, so if everything goes well, you won't see any error messages or any things saying everything went fine. So that's just how good old-fashioned computing is. If there's no issue, don't say anything. So you also would have noticed a new file show up here, and if you look closely, it has this nice coffee cup icon, which is generally it's a Java icon, but we are not going to double click on any of these things. We're just going to run them from here. All right, so we're going to run them through the command line. So if it works fine, you should see the .class file appear. The code that you were writing, of course, stays the same. Nothing has changed there. All right, so to run the program, you have to say Java and hello world. Now, when you type hello world to run the program, what you're typing is the name of the class, not the actual file itself. So students are very quick to say, oh, I better run the .class file, because that's actually what's intuitively sensible. But what we're typing is just the name of the class without the .class part. All right, so hello Java space hello world, and hit enter, and it might take a split second to start up. That's just how Java is. And then it'll display the output over here, and then it'll go back to whatever it was doing before, right? So it's ready to take up another command. So you produce the output and the program works. Let's say the program doesn't work. Let's say I forgot to put the semicolon over here, right? And I want to save it. As soon as you make a change to your program, you need to, first of all, save it through the editor. Everyone knows that. But when you try to run the program, it's still going to work. See, it shouldn't work without the semicolon. The reason for that is it's running the older version of the .class file that we created. There's no need to delete it, but all you need to do is just retype the Java C command. Now I'll show you so we type this exact same thing, but I can show you a trick. Now this works on Macs and Linux machines as well. If you have a up and down arrow on your keyboard, you press the up arrow to recall previous commands that you typed, down arrow to go to more recent commands that you typed. So it just recalls the history and saves you a lot of typing time. So the Java C command is the thing that I need to execute again or run again. Hit enter, and then now it says, okay, hello world.java. 5 stands for line number 5. So if I look over here, line number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where the issue is, right? And error semicolon expected over here, and it shows very nicely where it should be and all that. And it's just one error, so that we need to fix. Put a semicolon there, all right? Again, remember to save it. So Control S or save. Go back here and press the up arrow, compile, and then no errors, right? So it doesn't show anything. That means everything's good. It's not going to run the program though. So to run the program, I need to get the Java hello world, right? So that's the one that runs the program. Hit enter, and now it's running again. So if I want to say something else, instead of hello world, if I want to say hi world, I just saved it by pressing Control S, go over here, and if I hit this, is it going to say hi world? No, we need to recompile it. This is still running the old version. So to recompile, I will press the up or down arrow to get the Java C command and hit enter, and then get the Java command to run it, and there you go. It's saying hi world, which is the updated version. So instead of moving around Windows every time you want to run the program, modern versions of Windows allow you to do this thing where you can drag a window to the left and it'll stick to the left, dock to the left or right, and then I can have my code on the right side and my terminal screen on the left side, and I can use the Alt tab to switch between windows. So I don't even need to touch the mouse. So I can copy, paste, hi world, how are you? Save it, Control S, no mouse involved. Alt tab to switch to this window. Recall the Java C command. Now here I press down, hit enter, and Java run, and then now it's doing it. So then if I want to make another change, I go back here and make the changes. So when you're writing programs, ensure that you don't write too many things in one go, especially if you're using a plain text editor that doesn't show syntax or color. It doesn't color the syntax. If it doesn't color the syntax or give other help, you need to minimize risks, right? You need to make sure that what you write is exactly the right thing. So this part is basically what needs to be there in any basic Java program. The hello world part can change. That's up to you to give a name to. And if you change that name hello world, make sure that you change this name also to whatever it is. So if I change this name to hi world, which is now the name of the class, you can see the hello world.java is the name of the file name, right? So nothing has changed over here. It's just the contents inside the file that changed. So if I go back here and type javac hello world.java, it should work because the file name is still the same, right? So let's see what happens. And you can see it doesn't like it. So it's saying the class hi world is public and should be declared in a file named, it just got cut off there, named hi world.java. So you need to make sure the file also is called exactly the same thing as that. And what do I mean by exactly? So let's say that I rename this file. I can press F2 to rename, or just rename here. If I called it hi world like that, which doesn't have the same capitalization as what's in here, let's go back over here, right? I type javac hi world.java. It found the file, but it doesn't like it. So you need to make sure it's exactly the same, all right? So I will rename it to hi world, the way it should be, and then javac hi world. So what I did there was I typed a little part of the file name, the H, and I hit the tab button, which auto completes. So I can cycle through the files that are there by hitting the tab key, right? So hi world.java is what I want to do, and it saves you a lot of trouble, typing trouble. And now you can see it created hi world.class. So this hello world.class, yeah, that's the old version. We don't need it anymore. You can even delete that. All right. So now this works as expected. So hi world has to run, but we don't put the .class part, right? So we just say Java space that and hit enter, and it works fine. So remember, to compile, you use javac, and then you mention the full file name of the Java file. To run, you have to say just plain Java space and the name of the class, which is that. And that has to be exactly the same thing as that part there, except for the .java part. We don't put the .java up here in the class when you write the code. And that's just the very basic thing. Those are the basic steps of writing and running programs, Java programs through the command line. If you're on a Mac, The Java C is still the same. Java high build is the same. So the only thing you need to do is after installing JDK, you will need to navigate to the folder where you have your Java file. That's the only thing you need to do. So you will need to type CD, and maybe on a Mac, your path would be something like /users/g/desktop/ something like that, that you will need to find out on your own machine. And then the rest of the commands are the same, and the error messages will be the same, the ones that Java generates. So it's going to be virtually the same, even if you're on a Mac or a Linux machine. So I hope that helps. And remember to write one line at a time, and not write too many things, because there's nothing here popping up and telling you how to fix things. So you need to make sure that you don't write too many things in one go. So write one line at a time, and then compile, go back and add until you become more confident. Good luck.